Hello and good evening, this is Chazz Primrose, coming to you live from Studio City here in Los Angeles, California. Tonight on Politics This Week with Chazz Primrose, my guest is Heidi Harmon, the embattled mayor of San Luis Obispo, California, who is facing re-election. Good evening, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chazz.
Are you feeling okay? You look a little green around the gills.
You'll have to excuse me. I was toking out with some of Megan's chronic while driving down here. I should have rolled down a window or two.
Now, what's a middle-aged person like you doing smoking the ganja while driving down the 101? Don't you know any better?
The weed goes really well with the $2 chuck in my water bottle.
Why are you wearing a hat? Is that the style these days, up in San Luis Obispo?
My damned beautician. I don't want to talk about it.
Anyway, I brought you on so that you could talk about your campaign for re-election. How are things going?
I'm not too sure. People are so rude and disrespectful these days.
What do you mean exactly?
People are being mean to me.
Might that be because people in San Luis Obispo feel under siege from the BLM and their associates, which you and the city council invited to San Luis? Maybe because they feel you have abandoned them? Perhaps they feel as if you're not leading as a mayor should be leading during these tough times?
No, that's not why. I feel I am doing a fine job.
Could it be because you actually still continue to support the BLM and their associates, despite their worsening reputations here throughout California and the nation, based on their violent behavior?
No, it can't be that either. I need the support of the BLM and their friends, to get re-elected. Keeping Heidi mighty is job number one for me. Fuck the city of Slow, fuck the people of Slow. Fuck their comfort. My ego comes first. Heidi is mighty.
Might it be because they question your competence, or your dedication to the city of San Luis Obispo?
No. That's not it. After all, Heidi is mighty. I am mighty Heidi.
Please give me a concrete example of what you're talking about in that case.
A lot of people are criticizing me personally and the work I am doing as mayor of Slow.
Can you give me one solid example?
Well, there is this fucking asshole named Slow Shank who is tormenting me.
What do you mean, exactly?
He makes these animated videos that are critical of me.
Are they accurate?
I prefer not to say. The issue is that he's an asshole. I've called him an asshole publicly before, and I will do it again. Asshole, asshole, asshole.
We actually reached out to Slow Shank via satellite telephone. The Shank is currently on a hiking trip in Pozo. In his words, to clear his head from all the bullshit going on in San Luis right now.
I don't like Pozo. It's too hot. My makeup melts out there.
Anyway, we asked Slow Shank what he thought of being called an asshole by the mayor of San Luis Obispo. Here's his response. Are you kidding? I consider being called an asshole by Heidi Harmon to be a badge of honor, which I am proud of. She does not do the job she was elected to. She's a wasted city paycheck. She needs to be replaced.
Do we really need to talk about this asshole?
Let me finish their comments. The Shank goes on to say, you realize she's an imbecile, right? Consumed with highly partisan national politics while she ignores the real needs of San Luis and its residents. Serious and pressing issues like the city's growing homeless problem, its budget deficit, and its horrifically underfunded pension plan for city employees, which now exceeds $150 million. A deficit which will fall onto the backs of already overburdened taxpayers. She simply does not pack the gear to be mayor of my beloved San Luis Obispo. This is the same idiot who equated climate change with racism. She actually suggested that dealing with climate change is a prerequisite to dealing with racial injustice. The Black Chamber of Commerce up in Sacramento responded harshly to her comments. The Black Chamber found them to be utterly offensive.
That's just a bunch of fucking nonsense. He's got to be a misogynistic, red-necked, right-wing, GOP, neckbeard.
Just how could you ascertain the Shank's gender, political party affiliation and grooming habits, based on what I just quoted?
Well, I'm Mighty Heidi.
What's that supposed to mean? Anyway, do you think there might be some validity to the Shank's concerns? That you simply lack the skills and experience to do a good, competent job as the mayor of San Luis? That you focus on extreme, partisan, party politics, at the expense of truly working on behalf of San Luis and its people?
That is all a bunch of shit. If I ever find out who Slow Shank is, I am going to have his American-made, diesel-powered 4x4 pickup, towed and impounded. I bet it even has an American flag decal on the rear window.
Let's take a look at a few messages, shall we? Susan from San Luis Obispo just texted us on the Tommy's World famous line. Susan asks, I would like Ms. Harmon to explain the 7-story monstrosity of a building she and the San Luis City Council just approved for the corner of Chorro and Marsh. That 7-story structure will provide a total of 11 parking spaces. How could she and the council approve a structure so out of character with downtown San Luis? How could they approve anything with such limited parking? This is all about developers' greed at the expense of hurting the quality of life here in San Luis. Tax revenue is important, but it should not come at the expense of our city. How do you reply to this, Heidi?
Mama needs to get paid, and Tom and Jim have a huge bucket of grease.
What does that even mean?
I'm sorry, Chazz, I was experiencing a flashback. What did I just say? Anyway, what I meant to say is that building beautifully complements downtown Slow. We know best, and this is what Slow needs.
Are you playing around right now, Heidi? Just a little joke. Perhaps an attempt to lighten the mood?
What?
Let's move on. Fernando emails all the way from the state of Sinaloa, Mexico. He has a two-part question. First, about land use. He wants to know if you would be in favor of turning the former Graduate Restaurant and Nightclub building into a haven for partying. He asks, Hola Heidi. Would you support my investment cartel's desire to open El Grande Fumar, the Big Smoke, in San Luis Obispo? Fernando also wants to know, when you and Quinn will return for another all-expenses-paid week to Mazatlan?
Well, Freddie knows better than to ask me such questions publicly. He also knows that I cannot answer, without first talking to Helios and Nick, as well as Tom and Jim. I'll give him a call on my drive back up to Slow. Win or lose the election, Quinn and I are down to party in Mazatlan during the winter recess.
Moving right along. Abby from Culver City asks, in all sincerity, why would the good people of San Luis Obispo vote for you, given your well-known track record? I grew up in LA. I attended Cal Poly in the 1990s, and felt San Luis was absolutely God's country. It was beautiful. I loved living there. After graduating, I moved back to LA to go to work. Last year my daughter and I drove up to San Luis to take a look around, as she's comparing colleges. Just what happened to the city? The downtown is now a dirty, party-hardy slum. It was horrible. My daughter is going to school elsewhere. I can only conclude that San Luis now suffers from a lack of strong leadership. So I ask again, why would anyone vote for you?
Well, apparently Abby is related to Slow Shank. It's also apparent that Polly Dollies from the 1990s aren't all that smart. I have said it before. It's not about Slow. It's not about the people who live in Slow. It's not about Cal Poly and Cuesta students either. It's all about Heidi. Heidi is mighty.
We have time for one final text. Kevin R., from an undisclosed location in California, asks two important questions. Ms. Harmon, My first question has been posed to you more than once, yet you keep giving evasive, half-assed responses. How about a meaningful rejoinder this time? As the mayor of San Luis Obispo, how can you possibly stand with the BLM? A group that is disgracing itself nationwide, through their thuggish, violent behavior? More importantly, a dastardly group that has spread a virulent form of social cancer throughout San Luis, and the surrounding county? Will you please take this opportunity to denounce BLM for their violence, and to distance yourself from this organization? Second, Carlin Christensen, Erica Stewart and you, are obviously receiving payola from the owners of the 3 marijuana dispensaries that received permits to operate in the city of San Luis Obispo. Given this sort of low-life behavior, again, why would anyone vote for you?
Well, Kevin, I don't really know much about BLM. Though I invited them to SLO, and encourage them now that they're here. My advisors tell me it's important that I continue to support them no matter what they do, because my re-election depends on it. If they are frightening residents, or even committing acts of violence here locally, that's a small price to pay for my re-election in my opinion. As far as bribes and the pot shops, well, you'll have to prove it.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. 2 more shallow answers. Do you think voters will continue to buy your shtick? Maybe the callers are right. It sounds like San Luis Obispo does need a change. A huge political enema. It clearly needs to elect a fresh, able, and honest mayor and 2 city council members.
Baffle them with bullshit, Chazz.
Wow. I really don't know how to respond to that. Well, that does it for This Week in Politics. My thanks to Heidi Harmon, who drove all the way down from San Luis Obispo to be with us.
No problem, Chazz. Hey, do you happen to know where the nearest Del Taco is? I'm going to need a big bag of their chicken rollers and their jacked up value, bean rice and cheese burritos from their dollar menu to make it back to SLO.
I'll draw you a map. Good night and stay safe, everyone.